Welcome to the Beverage Clique Podcast, the only podcast where we discuss drinking trends with an Asian perspective. I'm your resident host, Sean O, certified beverage specialist and co-founder of the Beverage Clique Academy in Singapore and Malaysia. And here is this month's episode. Hello, my drinking comrades, and welcome back to the Beverage Clique Podcast. Today's episode shines a light on a producer that many wine drinkers would already recognize by name, but perhaps not always fully understand, Lawson's Dry Hills, from Marlborough, New Zealand. Now, Marlborough is of course one of the most commercially visible wine regions in the world, especially when it comes to Sauvignon Blanc. And because of that visibility, brands with strong market presence can sometimes be quickly labeled as mainstream or assumed to be purely commercial. But that's exactly why I felt this conversation was worth having. Because with Lawson's Dry Hills, there's a lot more beneath the surface. This is a brand with real presence across different channels and tiers, and as many of us know, even featured on Singapore Airlines Business Class wine list, which in itself says plenty about consistency, reliability, and broad appeal. But beyond that accessibility, there's also genuine quality, technical precision, and a clear sense of Marlborough identity running through the portfolio. So in this episode, I sit down with Belinda Jackson, Marketing and Sales Manager of Lawson's Dry Hills, to talk about Marlborough as a region, the philosophy behind the brand that is both well-known and widely available, and how quality, authenticity, and commercial success can in fact coexist. This is a good one for anyone in the trade, anyone who works with New Zealand wines, and honestly, anyone who has ever underestimated a label simply because they've seen it around too often. Let's get into it. Well, is this your first time here, Belinda?
No, it's not. I think it's my second time here.
Well, yeah. So welcome back to Singapore.
Thank you.
For today's episode, we have Miss Belinda Jackson.
That's right.
Yes, from all the way from New Zealand.
New Zealand, the South Island of New Zealand, Marlborough. Yes.
Specifically. Okay. Well, how's the weather in Singapore?
Hot. Hot and humid, but it's lovely to have the sun out.
Okay.
So yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's terribly hot. I mean, I just came back from Manila and it's insanely hot. So was Vietnam. So are you traveling out later on? I heard.
Yeah, I'm flying back to New Zealand tonight. I've been on the road for 2.5 months. I've been in Europe, and then I've gone to Seoul, so South Korea, and then I've come here, and then back home tomorrow.
Well, this is quite a tour that you have to.
Yeah, once a year I do one big one because our European markets are very important and Southeast Asia is very exciting for us.
Oh.
So that's where our focus is.
Okay, right. So for those who know Marlborough, mainly through Sauvignon Blanc, how would you describe the region today? In a broader sense, has it changed much, or?
Marlborough has become much more crowded, I guess, with vineyards. There's a lot more plantings today. It continues to grow, which isn't always a good thing because it's really important to be market-led instead of being production-driven. So Sauvignon Blanc certainly leads. I think it's about 86% of everything that is exported wine-wise is Sauvignon Blanc. But there's a lot of interest in our other varieties. So maybe something people would see that's a little different and not expected is to see the range of other varietals that we grow in there.
That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, I think for some wine people, they would know that aside from Sauvignon Blanc, you have many other varieties, but people still get misunderstood. So what do you think that people still misunderstand about
Marlborough?
Yeah, about Marlborough.
I think it's exactly that. I think people think we're only about Sauvignon and only about one style of Sauvignon, which is that kind of herbaceous, green, stainless steel ferment style, whereas in fact the style diversity within Sauvignon is really significant, whether it's from the different subregions, whether it's with winemaker influence, and of course those other varietals. So for example, we grow amazing Riesling Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is actually the second most planted grape in the Marlborough region. Also Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer. There's a lot of different grape varieties there. So it's about exploring the style diversity within Sauvignon Blanc and exploring those other grape varieties.
I agree. Just for context, I used to work for a French wine distributor in the past.
Yes.
So we had like other newer wines, and we had sales staff that were going out to do a lot of sales pitch. And the most common feedback that they get is that they're unable to sell in a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc because
the restaurant already has a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell them, did you ask them whether they only have one Bordeaux?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, yeah, and they just about,
Exactly. I mean, I think lots of wine people, or maybe even consumers, don't realize that there are lots of like other GIs, small regions in...
Yes,
and
very much so.
Exactly. So I think people should be a little more aware.
Yeah, because there are significant differences between those sub-regions, and then even within the sub-regions, the different vineyard sites. So you could be talking about a single vineyard wine, or you could be talking about a blend within a sub-region or a multi-sub-region blend. But whatever those things are, those wines are different. Same grape variety, and we would love it that when you pick the glass up, you know that it's Sauvignon, but there are different ways to bring that glass forward, whether it's where those grapevines have grown or whether it's, again, through the time of picking and winemaker influence. There might be a little bit of oak aging that's gone on, some wild fermentation, all sorts of different things that can make Sauvignon a very interesting grape variety, even if it's from one region.
Agreed. Talking about region, from your perspective, would you be okay sharing like key natural factors that make Marlborough what it is?
Yeah, sure. It's a combination of a lot of things. The same as for many regions. It's about the soils, it's about the climate. But I think for us, the key factor is the diurnal range of our temperatures, because being so cool in the night and so warm in the day means that we have an extra long growing season. And the flavors of grapes come from the length of time on the vine. So first of all, we're getting a lot of flavor, but also we're getting those wonderful aromatics and that intensity from that extended time, and from the ripening process taking that bit longer due to the cool of the night, kind of counteracting the warmth of the day. So when you add that to the different soil types, again in the different sub-regions, you have more complexity as well as underlining that signature style of Sauvignon.
Right, and Sauvignon is famous in Marlborough, but how has the region evolved in terms of, as you mentioned, Chardonnay and Gewürztraminer? How has it changed over time?
I think probably one of the biggest changes is with Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir, of course, we know is a tricky grape. So one of the things that Marlborough and New Zealand can actually take advantage of is that we don't have the strict sort of appellation contrôlée or DOCG type rules. So we can still experiment with different sites, different aspects, different clones. And this is really coming to fruition with Pinot Noir. So we can get the best out of that grape variety based on our soils, our climate, etc. So I think there's been a lot of experiment with Pinot Noir to really bring out the very best that we can in Marlborough. And I think that's true with other varietals as well. And coming back to Sauvignon, it's that ongoing learning about how we can take Sauvignon Blanc to people and give them this amazing experience that's kind of above and beyond what's anticipated. But I think the most development has probably been with Pinot Noir as well.
Well, that's very good to know. With global warming, that could benefit Pinot Noir a little bit, but has anything changed in terms of things like, I don't know, picking, just to preserve its freshness?
It's a real concern, to be honest, because there's kind of two aspects for us. One is that our general manager has been with the company for 25 years. And in that time, he has seen harvest start a whole month earlier.
A whole month?
It's a whole month earlier now than it was 25 years ago. So, you know, this is truly significant as far as these changes are concerned. The second thing is that our philosophy is very much all about environmental sustainability. So we do everything we can to try and understand and to make a difference. But in a true global sense, that's relatively difficult. So we know now we're dealing with harvest earlier on in the season. So if you pull everything back, that gives us challenges through spring with maybe a frost having an effect on the fruit set, etc., or the flowering and then fruit set in December. So there are a lot of challenges with this. The changes that we see are not only that the harvest has come forward, but also that we need to be monitoring the ripeness and the flavour from an earlier time so that we're ready to pick when we can actually maximise those opportunities.
So it's pretty much all hands on deck, you know, just making sure.
Yeah, it truly is, because the Sauvignon Blanc style, we've just talked about those diurnal temperatures making such a difference. So if, for example, the cool and the warm started to kind of match up a bit, that wouldn't be good. So at the moment, it's okay, and we hope it stays that way.
I feel, well, hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe let's talk a little bit more about the brand and philosophy.
Sure.
I mean, it's a very recognizable name, right? When Ryan invited me, I instantly knew, okay,
Oh, good.
Lawson Strike.
That's good to know.
Obviously, we know who they are and what you do. But in terms of brand identity, it is a very crowded and competitive category. So how do you actually define it in such a space?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Lawson started in 1992. So we are one of the most established, privately owned, originally the Lawson's family. Mm-hmm. And I think in those days that was something that was quite important, but the market has evolved today, and the sheer number of competitors, as you rightly say, means that that's not a good enough differentiator. For us, what we take to market is authenticity in our wines for both the grape variety and the place that they're grown. We also take our provenance, so it's actually our place. And on our labels, you can see the range of hills. So those are really the hills that were done by an artist.
Right.
And they are our mark of provenance on every label. And we have great focus on our people. We are a team of just 18. So we are actually quite a small producer. We only crush 1,800 tons from our vineyards. The big producers, are many, many thousands. So we like to think we touch every bottle before it comes to market. And also we lead with our sustainability. So all of our decisions are led by environmental sustainability. And that's a holistic approach. So it's a whole business approach. But it's also one of continuous improvement. So it's not like tick a box, we've done that, move on. It's actually continuing to see how we can improve our sustainability status. So with our certifications, that means that we are audited every year, and it's a very serious part of our business, and it does inform all of our decisions.
Right. Well, that's very good to know. In fact, it answered a couple of my questions
Okay.
to
I've jumped ahead.
sustainability. No, it's very good. It's very good. I think more than ever now that sustainability is something that almost every corporation needs to be considering, and considering that how big Lawson's Strike Hills is, it is quite an important thing. Now, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about commercial and marketing strategy, because clearly that's where your field is. And from that standpoint, to just stay resilient in today's market, where are consumers drinking more selectively, and they're a little bit more cautious. How have you stayed on course, just to make sure that you're commercially relevant?
Because we have always stuck to our philosophy. So, for example, this starts in the vineyard. The majority of fruit in Marlborough is grown on 4 canes. So we only grow on 2 and 3.
Oh, okay.
So we're already restricting the amount of fruit we produce because we want that intensity, we want that expression, that flavour, and we also want the ripeness. So we know that the more grapes on the vine, the longer it's going to take to get ripe. So it's really important to have that full ripeness before the canopy starts to shut down towards the end of the season. So it starts in the vineyard with us. It's also through the consistency of our styles. We have an anticipated style. So, for example, with our estate Sauvignon, it's a very individual style. So we take about 8% of the wine or the juice at that time, and we ferment that in really old French oak. And it's wild yeast, and it's on those lees for about 3 months before we blend that back into the stainless steel portion. So this is giving a more textural wine, which again comes from growing less fruit as well. More texture, more complexity, lessening the acidity, and it's become a wine that people enjoy a second or third glass because it has that mouthfeel, it has that weight and that concentration. So I think our competitive difference is bringing all the things that are important to us through into the wine so that you can have that holistic experience with the wine. And yes, it's about the aroma and the flavour, but also about the texture. And people will seek out, I hope, our style of wine because they enjoy it. And it's really food friendly as well. It's not so dominant.
It's actually quite interesting to know because for a scale of, that thick, and you're using natural yeast. It's
totally.
Something that I don't think many people actually are aware of that.
No, they may not be. But, you talk about scale, but as I say, we have access to only 120 hectares. We own half of that, and the other half are long-term growers. And so we're very hands-on. Our team, just 18 of us, we roll our sleeves up, and we're very hands-on, and we work very hard, particularly in the vineyard. So when we are actually looking at wild ferment portions and things, it's because we want to make the best wines we can make. We want to make wines that we enjoy and wines that we're proud to share. So that means that our winemaking and the way we grow our grapes is a little bit different, because we want to stay true to that philosophy for the long term. So when you buy a glass of wine or a bottle of wine from Lawson's Dry Hills, you will always get the best that we can do and that authentic expression.
That's very good to know. And pertaining to different export markets, clearly there are many differences and maybe a little nuances. How does Lawson's actually make sure that they adapt to a different markets? For example, between Singapore and what was the other country that you're going to?
Well, I've come from South Korea and from Europe.
Yeah.
For the main part, our wines remain the same, because if you know it's the best you can do, that's what you want to take people. Having said that, we're not arrogant in saying, it's this or nothing. We do try to take on board any market differences, and that might come through something like our Invinity label, for example, which is more of your classic style of Sauvignon. The key thing is that our name is on the bottle, so there is an anticipation of what would be inside. And when we introduce new people to the brand, we want them to be excited about what they've tasted and what they've experienced. I guess one of the differences at the moment, which isn't here, but we've talked about Europe a little bit, is actually stepping outside, is to the UK, where the new duty rules actually increase duty for every 0.5% of alcohol. So that one is a little bit of a challenge, because
tricky, isn't it?
we need to make sure that the wine is still true to our philosophy, but we don't want it going, more than 12.5% in alcohol. So there is a little bit of compromise there for a particular label, maybe for the UK, but for the most part, we really want to stay true to what we do and what we know we're good at. Again, not from an arrogance perspective, but from what's anticipated in the market and from what stands us apart and makes us different.
Yeah. This is a slightly off tangent, but are you doing lesser alcohol or lighter in alcohol?
Yeah, we have one wine which we've just released. It's called Lawson's Dry Hills Lighter in Alcohol Sauvignon Blanc. It's just 9%. And I'm really pleased to say we've done all of that in the vineyards. So we haven't used any of the industrial stripping processes. We've simply been managing the rate of photosynthesis. So less sugars are accumulated in the grapes. So in other words, we've worked the canopy, we've taken some leaves off. And yes, we have actually picked a bit earlier. But that wine is super exciting because, you get it to here and you already know it's Marlborough Sauvignon. So there's no compromise on the aroma or the flavour. But you can have a glass at lunchtime or have a lighter start to your evening out and still have that Marlborough Sauvignon experience. It's really delicious and has gone down really well.
Yeah, well, and it's good to know that it hasn't gone through any of that reverse osmosis or spinning cone.
Yeah, that's not our thing. So we probably would stay at 9, maybe 8.5 if we can do it in the vineyard. But again, we don't want to compromise so far that we're not proud of what we're producing at the end of the day.
Okay. And pertaining to Pinot Noir, because you were talking about Pinot Noir early on, I'm not sure we're going to taste it today, but you do have a Pinot Noir and Pinot Noir Reserve.
I do, yes, and we are tasting them today.
That's very good. So in terms of like a business or even a stylistic standpoint, how different are they?
Okay, so the estate Pinot Noir is all about delivering authentic Pinot Noir in the glass, but very fruit-driven. So we want a glass of wine that is supple, that is quite succulent, that is easy to enjoy and give that Pinot Noir fruit spectrum. So there is no new oak involved in that wine at all, just a little bit of old oak, but really very minimal oak altogether. The Reserve Pinot Noir has a longer time oak maturation and about 20% of the oak is new. So they're both small batch produced in open top fermenters, hand plunged and all that sort of thing that you would expect from good Pinot Noir. But as I say, it's select vineyards for the Reserve And then that's a 10-month maturation, including roughly 20% new oak. I mean, the fruit dictates every year what that's going to be. Yeah. About 10 months, whereas the estate is just that softer, more supple. It doesn't demand food. It's very happy with food. So 2 different styles, different vineyards, and a different regime, slightly different regime with the winemaking, particularly with the oak aspect.
It's very good to know. I'm probably asking for my own sake because I love Pinot Noir a lot.
Great.
But with so many wines today, and we'll list them in the episode synopsis, which of these wines best captures where Lawson's is going towards? It's not just only capturing where it's been. That means, into the future.
Pinot Noir or all of our wines?
Or any of these wines. Which one of these wines do you think it's probably going to be the one that's capturing the future?
Wow. My goodness. Okay, which one is capturing our future? I would have to say Sauvignon Blanc because I strongly believe that is the future for Marlborough, and it's about being able to help people understand the style diversity within Sauvignon. As I've already explained, the way that we make ours is a little different, and we will always hang on to that because we believe it makes the best Sauvignon that we can produce. So for us, Sauvignon Blanc is definitely our flagship and will continue to lead the way into the future. But I might add, with Pinot Noir, we've also undergone a bit of a Pinot Noir program a few years ago where we wanted to ensure that our wines take on an elegance, a silkiness. And so we very much focused on that, and that's come to fruition really well. And we've made some changes in the vineyard and some changes in the winemaking. Only small changes because it's still very true to us, but just to produce this silky, expressive, delicious version of Marlborough Pinot Noir. So again, real authenticity in the glass for Pinot, but also authenticity showing the place that it's grown, which is super important.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Belinda, I think that's pretty much it for today.
Okay, right. Thank you.
And thank you again for being on the episode. I hope all the success to Lawson Dry Hills and safe journeys.
Thank you.
You're leaving at what, 3?
Yeah, I need to go this afternoon to grab my flight back home. Yeah.
My word. So you're really on the move.
I am on the move.
Yes, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That was my conversation with Belinda Jackson from Lawson's Dry Hills. And I think this episode is a very good reminder of something that happens quite often in wine. The more visible a brand becomes, the easier it is for people to reduce it to a label, a category, or commercial shorthand. People see it around and they assume they know what it is about, and very quickly they stop asking deeper questions. But as you heard today, visibility does not necessarily mean lack of substance. If anything, for a brand to maintain that kind of presence across retail, restaurants, airline listings, and international markets, while still carrying a very clear regional signature, that actually takes quite a lot of discipline, consistency, and intent. And I think Lawson's Dry Hills is a good example of that. Yes, it is recognizable. Yes, it is established. Yes, it is present in many different channels and tiers, but that should not distract us from the fact that there is real quality in the range, real understanding of Marlborough, and a clear effort to balance accessibility with authenticity. So, perhaps the next time you come across Lawson's Dry Hills, whether on a wine list, in a shop, at a trade tasting, or even at 35,000 feet on Singapore Airlines Business Class, take a second look. Because sometimes what people call mainstream is simply a brand that has done the hard work of getting a lot of things right. My thanks once again to Belinda for joining me for this conversation. And as always, thank you, my drinking comrades, for listening. I'll see you on the next episode.